Hi everyone, this is Allison Messick responding to week 4. The question provided by Dr. Meredith: will the Islamic world become post-Islamic, driven by moral relativism, similar to Europe? And also, what role does democracy play in this? This is challenging, but this is good based on these readings because it's forcing me to pull them together to come up with an opinion. So first, I would like to state some of the issues I see. One, the issue that democracy is viewed or may be viewed as a substitute for religion. The issue of reification of Islam, and I believe that's an internal perspective. An external perspective, and I'm quoting Ansari here, is the almost Platonic assumption of essentialism in Islam. I would think that external views believe that Islam, it cannot change, it won't change. It's got certain things that make it what it is, and those things cannot withstand reformation or transformation. Ansari points out that the right questions are being asked now. It's not, can Islam, is the Islamic faith, is the Muslim faith compatible with democracy? He applauds that we're kind of beyond that question now. The question now is how? How can Islam be relevant? How can it accept certain precepts that the authors say have always been there? The good of the common people, the good of the community, human rights and dignity and these things. How can we take what has always existed in Islam but has been lost in translation along the way by radicalism and incorporate that into democracy or incorporate democratic processes into Islam? Ansari says that the need for reform has been expressed since the 18th century, and he considers Islamism to be pre-modern. So when we start to look at pre-modern, modern, post-modern, and these things, and then moral relativism, we see that the language is already there. The semantics are in place. Ansari also addresses low Islam and high Islam and viewpoints. He expresses that reform looks different whether you are a reformist, like a liberal Islamist, or you are traditional or fundamentalist, or of course obviously radical. And then your viewpoint, whether it's low or high Islam. The theme throughout these chapters is submission to rational inquiry, that it is possible to maintain and even promote Islam as a faith through rational inquiry. Instead of what I think Europe did was looked at how can we separate church and state? How can we use rational inquiry to disprove Christianity? Whereas what I see here with Ansari, who answered that moral relativism is not necessarily going to be the result of rational inquiry and reformation. He sees it almost as cyclical, that by, I think Rushdian, is it? I apologize, I should have written this down. Oh, I'm so sorry. Please hold on. I just want to quote it correctly. Rushdian Creed asserts that the idea that reason understands in its own incapacity to provide ethical guidance and thus refers us to religion, and religion itself points us back to reason. This is where I see the fundamental difference between postmodern and moral relativism of the West, of Europe, and the use of rational inquiry and the development of democratic processes, or what he refers to as enlightenment. I see the process the same. Several authors have told us or questioned us, why do we expect that democracy and universal suffrage and human rights, why do we expect an overnight result? And overnight in historical terms, meaning even within a decade, even within a few decades, when it took centuries to accomplish this level of democratization in the West. So there's the timeline, but also if the goal is separation of church and state, which is causing quite a bit of fear and concern in Islam for Europe, then we're off, because that's not necessarily where these authors are pointing to. They're basically saying, just as I read, that the search for meaning the submission to rational inquiry is ultimately going to strengthen Islam. It's the rights and identity of the individual are going to lead to the benefit of the Muslim community. So, to answer the question, I agree with Ansari. I don't think that we're going to see the level of or development of moral relativism in Islam that we've seen with Christianity in the West. I do believe we can see greater secularization. But what I'm getting from these authors is that I am a Muslim, I want to remain a Muslim, and I want to perpetuate the things that I see as a Muslim that were always in existence, that have either been watered down or challenged through radicalization. Again, the rights of the individual and the benefit of the community, human dignity, a relationship, a contract between Muslim leaders and the people. That was always there. So it's like they're trying to recapture what was always there and has been polluted. So I think that Ansari is spot on, that doesn't necessarily mean moral relativism for Islam. My gut tells me that they are going to see democratization, that it will take time because the right questions are being asked by the right people, and because the conversation that really he says started in the 1920s is now gaining a wider audience. Ansari refers to mass education as both the reason for reification of Islam and enlightenment. So it's just very interesting to me, this question and the answer. I really struggle with Ansari sometimes, but his last essay was very helpful, the sources of enlightened Muslim thought, because he brought greater clarification. So I hope this answers well for you, and I look forward to any questions or responses you may have. Thank you.